There are three main theories of international relations: realism, liberalism, and constructivism. This video outlines the main assumptions and key observable implications of these three theories. First, I want to note that all three theories are what we call deductive theories. They start with assumptions and draw conclusions based on the logical implications of those assumptions. They can be tested against history and current events, but that's not really their purpose. Their purpose is to provide frameworks for understanding international relations. So there are not really theories about cause and effect. They don't ask or answer the question, what causes war? Instead, they ask, what is the nature of the international system? That said, they shape contemporary American and often international understandings of international relations, so they're important to understand. The first theory of international relations is realism. Most associated with Ken Waltz, John Mearsheimer, and Stephen Walt, realism argues that the fundamental state of the international system is anarchy. There is no central government that sovereign states can appeal to in order to resolve their problems. If states want to guarantee their survival, they can only rely on themselves. States therefore seek to increase their military strength in order to balance the power of other states. For example, John Mearsheimer has argued that Russian intervention in Ukraine was an inevitable consequence of its weakness at the end of the Cold War. No state could have accepted the dominance of the United States in the international system, and so Russia invested in its military and took action to reestablish itself as a great, or at least regional, power. This creates a problem, however. When states invest in their military to prevent attacks from other nations, they can become threats to those other nations, which then increases the threat to themselves. This is called the security dilemma, and it leads to a split in how realists approach security. Offensive realists argue that states must always maximize their power relative to other states. Defensive realists argue that the security dilemma makes power maximization irrational, and so to guarantee security, states will actually minimize risk and prefer a stable international system. States can never really trust other states, though, so even when they do cooperate, it's just going to be temporary. Liberalism is not as cohesive a theory as realism, but if there's one thing that unites liberal theories of international relations, it's the idea that states have varied interests. While realism argues that state survival and security drive all international politics, liberalism argues that other factors also shape the national interest. There are three main strands of liberal theory. Liberal institutionalism argues that the international system is not as anarchic as realists say. They argue that international organizations, treaties, and norms can, in fact, facilitate cooperation between states because they reduce uncertainty. By providing channels to share information between states, they make it easier for states to understand each other's intentions and make commitments more credible. Economic liberals, unsurprisingly, focus on economic interests. They essentially argue that trade relations can shape the states' choices. States with extensive trade relations with each other will be less likely to go to war because their economies are interdependent. Finally, liberals argue that domestic political institutions, such as legislatures or bureaucracies, influence how states form their foreign policies. According to this theory, personalist dictators are more likely to declare war because they have few constraints on their actions. Democracies obviously declare war too, but they will be choosier in their conflicts because leaders can be voted out by citizens who are dissatisfied with the outcome of a war. Combined, these liberal theories argue that cooperation is both more likely and more enduring than realists would say. The final theory of international relations is constructivism. This theory emphasizes the role of ideas and perceptions in international relations. As Alexander Wendt put it, anarchy is what you make of it. In other words, the reason why anarchy operates in the international system is because leaders believe it does. They take actions, like increasing military spending, based on these ideas about how the international system works. As Michael McFaul put it, one reason for Putin's foreign policy choices is his concept of the international system and the US threat to Russia. So this has been a very brief and oversimplified introduction to these theories, but I hope they provide context for our understanding of Russian foreign policy and regional conflict in Eurasia.